Next up, we have Tim from Red Pen Logic.
Christianity is not a religion. It's a relationship with God. Oh, really? So what's God's favorite color? I don't really know. Does God have a favorite movie? What about pets? Does God have any pets? Think dogs go to heaven. Got a sports guy? Does he like football, basketball, hockey? I don't really know. So you're telling me you have an intimate and personal relationship with God who knows everything about you, knows all of your thoughts, and you don't even know what his favorite color is? But he loves me. Yeah, and you don't know anything about him.
Hey, Dad, I have a question for you. What's your favorite color? Well, I'm just wondering, I'm actually worried we don't have a good relationship if I don't know your favorite color. You mind if I take a guess? Okay, your favorite color's green. Oh, no. Okay. Okay, thanks, Dad. Gotta go. This video has 3
All right. Before we get into that, obviously he was looking at a TikTok video, which then we're like third hand watching the TikTok video, which is fun. And then Tim decided to call his father and ask what his father's favorite color was. The video posited that if Christians are indeed in a relationship with God, that there are some basic questions. If you're in a relationship with someone, there are things that you learn about that person if it's two-way. One of the things I was wondering as I was watching this, and we'll get to it at the end, but I'll mention it now. I actually wonder if it's actually the opposite of what's going to be happening here, and that our relationship with God is actually parasocial, where we think we know things about God because we are reading about God or watching God or hearing sermons about God, all those kind of things. Does God actually know anything about us, though? God being the celebrity in this parasocial relationship. That all aside, actually, let me know. What do you think? Is there anything to that? Maybe are people having a parasocial relationship with God? We'll leave that for now, because in the video we're talking now about the opposite, where God knows everything about us, and we're just granting that for some reason now, and we're looking at whether we know anything about God, be it the favorite color or something like that.
big problems. Let's look at each together. First, just because you don't know some trivial things about God, like his favorite color or movie, doesn't mean you don't have a relationship with him. This
Now, this is obviously trivially true, right? It's probably seen some version of a dating game, for example, where people are in romantic relationships or friendship relationships or something like that, or even parent-child, that kind of thing. You go on a show and they ask one person a question, and then the second person comes in and they're supposed to predict how the other person would have responded. There's lots of times in these things where it actually reveals that people who are in obvious relationships with each other don't always know all the little details about these kind of things. Fine, well and good. What the point of the TikTok was is that if you think you're in this relationship, do you know anything about them? It's not it's not like there was these 3 magical questions like favorite movie, favorite sports team, favorite color. That's the key. It's really, do you know anything? Now, the first thing you would ask, so let's say you were in a situation where someone's talking about their girlfriend from Canada. Now, in Canada, that wasn't a thing, but it's my understanding that in the States, it's a trope that you might claim that you had a significant other in Canada and that's how come your friends haven't met. You would ask questions like, well, how tall are they? What's their hair color? What's their skin color? You might ask some things about their physical attributes. I applaud the TikTok maker for not making that mistakes, because the Christians then can immediately jump on some kind of fallacy saying it's a category error, that, well, because God doesn't have a body, that obviously we can't know about God's physical attributes. So congrats to the TikTok for not falling into that trap that the Christians can then easily dismiss. But if you don't know anything, if you don't know, well, in the case of the girlfriend, for example, you would expect to know those physical traits, but you'd also expect to know what city do they live in, what school do they go to, what's their last name. You'd expect to have at least some details. The TikTok video points out that if a Christian really wants to look at it, what details about God do they know? Is this really a relationship, or are you just projecting things? If it's a two-way street, if it's actually a relationship, how come there aren't these categories of these facts that you can tell me, you can describe God to me in some way, some detail, some fact about a person? It's got to be some kind of red flag if you describe anything about the person you're in a relationship with, or the being you're in a relationship with.
Video is a non sequitur. That means it just doesn't follow. Think about the relationship Navy SEALs have towards each other. These men are willing to die for each other. Now, do they know each other's favorite color? Well, not likely. But that doesn't mean they don't have a deep and profound relationship. That's because
Now, a Navy SEAL team, for example, they might actually, it's true, you may not, the individual Navy SEALs may have just met each other recently, and or when they're in training, they don't have a lot of time to talk about their personal lives, and that may not be an appropriate thing to talk about. What creates the bond of loyalty, though, would between in a Navy SEAL team is a lot of times it's shared experiences is what creates those bonds in any kind of military outfit. The fact that you've been through the same thing that the person next to you has been through, be it the training or be it an attack or something that happened on the travel, like shared experiences actually do create stronger bonds than knowledge about trivia about a person, for sure. So that is actually one of the reasons why military people are so willing to lay down their lives for each other. But also part of it is trained into them, because if you will have your brother or sister's back in these cases, because they will also have yours. And it's this whole shared bond. So I do like the example of the Navy SEALs because, again, the color of their first bicycle probably doesn't come up in those kind of deep trainings. They have other reasons. And they also, of course, know that the person next to them exists. This is not in question. And you can tell things about them. They will know how tall are they? What color is their skin? What color is their hair? Which bunk do they sleep in? What's their dog tag number? All these kind of things. And a lot of times they'll know where they're from a lot of times, or at least what their last name is. So again, that's all in the category of things about God. So Tim is taking this too literally, saying that these 3 trivia questions are the test of a relationship. No, it's that, can you know anything? Do you know any detail? And again, what are these shared experiences that we have with God? We think that we have shared experiences with God, or at least I did. I thought God was with me at my baptism. I thought God was with me when I was in near misses on the road. I thought God was with me looking for my contact lens on the floor. These are things that I thought were shared experiences with God and were part of why I thought I had a relationship with Him. But when you separate it out, and when I looked at it carefully in hindsight, which of those things, what was I attributing that closeness to? Is there actually something other than my mind that was there? For me, I decided that there actually, all those experiences that I thought I was attributing to God were not true. But that's not relevant to Tim right now. Anyway, let's see what else he has to say.
deep relationships don't trade in trivialities. They're based on something else. Second, just because you don't know some trivial things about God doesn't mean you don't know anything about God.
What things about God would be trivial? So I guess if you knew like God's favorite color or God's, maybe favorite denomination or favorite preacher, those would be cool things. Favorite religion, those would be interesting things to know. Anyway, Tim, what do we know about God and how do we know it? What is your definition of knowledge?
Here's what I do know about God. I know He's morally perfect,
Tim claims to know that God is morally perfect. How do you know that? Because the Bible tells you so? Is it not plausible? Is it not possible that an imperfect being claimed to be perfect? And or by what definition of morality are you claiming is morally perfect? So if you go by my definition that morality has to do with reducing harm and increasing flourishing, then I think you can show places where God, at least in the Bible, doesn't always reduce harm and increase flourishing. However, if your definition of God is morality is what God says, then you've got a tautology. Then, of course, God is morally perfect because you've defined morality as what God does, and you've proven literally nothing. So tell me, how do you know that God is morally perfect?
exceedingly merciful, abounding in steadfast love. I know He's someone worthy of our.
How do you know that God loves you? Again, but you might ask, well, how do I know that my mother loves me, or that anyone loves you, or that your dog loves you? These, again, are shown either through actions. They do loving things, and perhaps you might combine that with that they profess love. Cool. What loving thing can you demonstrate that God actually has done that is undeniably from God? If I'm claiming to know this, right? Justified true belief. And how can I know that God is professing to love me? These are all in the category of things that you can't know, or at least let me know how you know.
Worship and obedience. I know he's given me something more valuable than anything imaginable. Forgiveness.
Okay, I pause a little quick there. Forgiveness. God has given him something that's apparently valuable for forgiveness. How do you know that God has forgiven you? Not everyone who says to me, on that day, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. The Bible warns that there are people who are convinced that they are saved, who on judgment day will find out then and there that they were not saved. How do you know that you are not one of the people that the Bible predicts will be completely convinced? You are completely convinced, but the Bible already tells us that you can't know this. You might be one of the people who's not saved.
So no, I don't know God's favorite color or movie or number, but I do know something.
I think God's favorite number is either 7 or 40. Just putting it out there. I'm guessing it's one of those.
Things that are much more profound than that. Third, this video seems to confuse propositional knowledge and what we might call experiential knowledge. For example, this is the difference between reading about a sunset in a textbook and experiencing one firsthand. Notice what happened in the video. The Christian claims to have a relationship with God, and then the atheist responds by quizzing the Christian on trivial facts about God. How could...
But if you're trying to compare experiencing a sunset with books, with merely the only experience you have with sunset is by reading about it in a book, for example, or maybe it is you're talking to an unsighted individual who has never seen a sunset, again, who would only have a chance to read about it or to hear about it described to them, you would still be able to, in order to determine whether someone's experience of the sunset was equivalent to your experience of the sunset, at least ask questions about it. What did you see? What colors did you see? How did the sky change throughout the process? And you can also then compare, how did it make you feel? And these are things that you actually can ask questions about. Just because something you've learned experientially doesn't mean there are not questions that can be asked and things that can be learned and propositional knowledge about that experience. So the person making the TikTok video wasn't saying that your relationship with God would be purely propositional. They were just posing the very valid question, why can't you tell me anything propositional?
Would a Christian have a relationship with God if they don't even know his favorite color? Granted, I think we should have propositional knowledge about God because it strengthens our relationship.
So do I. So tell me how you or anyone has this propositional knowledge. As far as I can tell, if you're like William Lane Craig or anybody, all you have is this experiential. The burning in the bosom if you're a Mormon. These are the kind of, these experiences need to lead to something propositional if you want someone like me to think that you're not just talking to yourself.
A book to help you with that is The Knowledge of the Holy by A.W. Tozer. Having said that, relationships don't demand exhaustive propositional knowledge. Pet lovers might appreciate this. My wife and kids have a relationship of sorts with our dog, Polly. Say hi,
Aw.
Polly. Now we could ask,
Polly.
what's Polly's favorite color? Beats me, but we're still best friends, aren't we, Polly? Yeah. By the way, Polly does...
I mean, this is a weird example because, of course, while I am a dog lover and think that dogs do experience some emotions, to some extent, we do know that dogs are pack animals, and the behaviors that they exhibit that we anthropomorphize as love are partially for just them doing their own survival behavior and making sure they get food. And dogs have been bred to have certain characteristics and traits, some of which that have been selected for are, of course, loving and being cuddly and being cute. So, yeah, that we would purely call this a loving relationship is a whole thing. I don't think anyone would deny that dogs and their owners do have relationships. But this idea that because we don't know the dog's favorite color, we don't have a relationship is, again, just category error. If we want to claim we have a relationship with our dog, first of all, we understand certain things. So if you can't tell me the breed of dog or perhaps the types of breeds, although some people can't know what their breeds are, you'd know roughly the height of your dog. You would know a name that the dog responds to. You would know its size, its color. You would know some basic proposition, what kind of food it likes. You would know some propositional things about your dog. Similarly, and we'll get to this in a sec.
Doesn't know my favorite color either. Yet if you come to the door, she will cower in fear. But when I go to the door, she wags her tail in excitement. Right, Polly?
Yeah, the dog is excited about you, the owner, because the dog has some propositional knowledge about you. Probably the dog knows what you smell like. That's probably the main thing. The dog also will have some limited remembrance of kind of things that you have done for the dog in the past. It will know roughly what you look like. Actually, it reminds me, just to step back, it just occurred to me. He said we don't know what the dog's favorite color is. I don't know. Let me know in the chat. Do dogs actually see in color? I think, is that a myth? I think dogs only see in black and white. So asking what a dog's favorite color is, I just realized, is probably a ridiculous question on that front. Or is that a myth? I'm never completely sure on that. Or if dogs, there's lots of things about dogs I'm not sure about, but that might be a ridiculous question. I've derailed myself. I'm sorry. But all that to know, dogs absolutely have some propositional knowledge of their owners. They can't express it verbally, but they do express it by wagging their tail and showing affection, these kind of things. Anyway.
That's because she knows me and not you. If you don't like the pet illustration, then think about the relationship between a mother and her baby. The point is, this
same thing, mother and a baby. Yeah, that's obviously a very intimate bond that is accentuated for a birth mother, because a birth mother would have had even more time to bond and to share some of the same sounds and experiences and get to know each other more familiarly. Again, that baby knows sounds of voices and smells, and very early on in an infant's life, the facial recognition kicks in. These are all, while a baby can't express what these details are yet, they absolutely have propositional knowledge of the mother, and of course the mother presumably has some propositional knowledge of their infant as well. So again, bad example, not analogous.
You can't name God's favorite color, therefore you don't have a relationship with him, absolutely fails.
So while it is trivially true that the trifecta questions, what's God's favorite color, what's God's favorite number, what's God's favorite sports team, that is not a test of whether or not you have a relationship with someone, but the test is some level of propositional knowledge. I give kudos to the TikTok maker for giving a good example of that. Tim, I think that your defenses of not having propositional knowledge and your claims of the propositional knowledge you think you do have completely failed, and I wish I had brought a cup to throw a pencil in so that I could also, instead of dropping the mic, apparently he slams the pen into the cup. But let me know in the comments, am I being too hard on this? Do people have actual propositional knowledge of God? Knowledge in the sense of justified true belief? Or should we know God's favorite color? More importantly, I'm actually now thinking about this question of, do what Christians or other people think that the relationship they think that they have with God, is that more akin to a parasocial relationship? Should we actually instead ask for proof that the God, rather than asking what we know about God, what evidence is there that God knows anything at all about me? The Bible says it knows the number of hairs on my head. How do we know that? Does God know my name? Does not God know anything about me? How would I know? How can we test this? I think maybe we're onto something. Let me know if I'm off base or if I discovered some interesting thing.